from 2019 till date have become a worrisome trend. This and other issues of safety of lives and property led to the marching order by President Muhammadu Buhari to the Federal Fire Service to, as a matter of urgency, develop strategies to stem the ugly tide. And what better way to proffer solutions than to invest in capacity building of officers? And Katsina State in the Northwest Geopolitical Zone is the first port of call for the nationwide training for state fire services. The idea to equip participants with requisite skills on fire incident and flood disaster management. Our correspondent will share his experience with us. Now, talking education. In the early 80s, public schools from basic, secondary to tertiary education were known for high standards. And many government officials and policymakers of today are products of public schools. Then, along the line, private schools took over the academic space and it became a status symbol for parents to train their children in private schools. But with the school feeding program of the federal government and investments in public schools, many of the schools are gradually regaining their lost glory. We'll take you to Jigawa State, where public schools now enjoy high patronage from parents. And we're still on social services. Public transportation plays a major role in socio-economic activities as it is easily accessible and affordable. But there is a particular means of road transport which has provided relief to many Abuja residents but is now fast disappearing in Abuja. You'll get to know more. Now, I'm glad to have you join us on The Correspondence this week. I bet it will be worth your while. I'm Naja'atu Tijani. Now let's begin with the nationwide training for state fire services which took place in Katsina State following the directive by the President to the Controller General of the Federal Fire Service to map out strategies of combating the recurring fire outbreaks in the country. And now this is why the Federal Fire Service has flagged off a nationwide training for state fire service staff. The event took place in Katsina State, as correspondent Doyin Dia tells us.
Limited resources and the needed manpower are amongst the factors said to be a militating factor to prompt fire emergency response in the country.
Officers must be trained. The training is designed to improve the officers on the management of fire and other related incidents. Fire has no boundary. It can happen anywhere, and the quality of training received by the officers will determine how the fire incident is managed. Hence, in order to bridge the training gap between the fire officers in Nigeria, the Federal Fire Service is organizing this training, which is free of charge for state fire services.
And to equip our youth with the required skill to pursue careers in diverse disciplines, not to mention the new window open the youth with interest in pursuing a career in a critical sector of disaster and emergency management.
The training for state fire services, therefore, is in response to President Muhammadu Buhari's instruction to the Federal Fire Service for a rapid response to the ravaging fire outbreaks across the country.
Incident command courses for firefighting, flood disaster management for flood. These are the major disasters we are having as a challenge to firefighters. So by the time we expose them to international best practices, they'll be able to handle this situation very efficiently and very effectively.
It's a really saving grace for all Nigerians. 2 days ago, we had a fire incident. I think the Controller General saw the place today. So we thank the federal government, especially Muhammadu Buhari. We thank him very much for this opportunity. Honestly, it's a very good thing for us.
Citing this school in Katsina State actually is a welcome development because there are going to be employment for our teaming unemployed youths in Katsina State. So therefore, there are going to be a lot of activities which is going to take place here in Katsina in Kankia local government, which it will boost economic activities, it will boost everything that you can know in the sectors of all the sectors of the economy. So we appreciate the federal government, we appreciate the fire service fighting this school here in Kankia local government, Katsina State.
The extension of the provision of fire services infrastructure into the various nooks and crannies of the state will make it faster for the federal fire service and the state fire service to respond.
My expectation is that I'm thinking to get a full knowledge based on incident command and the disaster management. And from the takeoff, the way I'm seeing it, by God's grace, I will have what I desire to have.
It will be recalled that President Muhammadu Buhari last year approved the recruitment of 2,200 firefighters and the purchase of 96 firefighting trucks to boost the capacity of the Federal Fire Service. The training will be conducted across the 6 geopolitical zones of the Federation.
That was quite an interesting report. And joining us on the correspondence is Doyin Dia, who covered the first leg of the nationwide training for State Fire Service officers in Katsina State. Doyin, you are welcome to our studio.
Thank you for having me, Najatu.
Tell us, nationwide training for these officers, what can we expect and what is the intention?
Okay, the nationwide training for state fire services is actually upon the instruction by the Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Forces, talking about President Muhammadu Buhari. You will recall that between last year and now, we've recorded series of fire outbreaks across the country with properties worth billions of naira destroyed and in some cases lives also lost. So the president gave a marching order to the Federal Fire Service to ensure that it come up with measures to mitigate against this rampant and incessant fire outbreaks across the country. And in his wisdom, the chief of the Federal Fire Service, the Controller General, talking about Dr. Liman Alhaji Ibrahim, came up with the concept of training state fire services, because if you look at it, one of the challenges they've had in the past is that some of the personnel of state fire services, some of them don't really have the requisite skills to attend to some of this development, and that was what led to the flag off of this program in Katsina State.
So let me come in here. Requisite skills. What sort of skills do you need to fight fire that was addressed in this training?
Okay, the training itself, it's called Incident Command and Flood Disaster Management for fire officers and men, and it's basically to expose them to some of the causes of fire, and especially that which has to do with fire outbreaks in public places and how they can respond swiftly, because one of the concerns that has often come on the front burner is the lack of prompt response by the fire service, and this as a result, in some cases you hear complaints about not having the manpower, and in some cases not having the equipment. So these to abreast them with the tips. Of course, they are trained firefighters, but you know, these are just like the global warming that we're having as a result of the global climate change. We have different situations now that is also leading to fatal fire, and these are just part of what the program trying to address, to equip them with the skills which will help them in their day-to-day operations.
Now, speaking of equipment, could you show us some of what you brought and tell us a little bit about how these materials help to fight fire?
Okay, this is called This is called the PPE, the personal protective equipment. If you see this, the jacket, it's reflective, especially if it's in the night and you're going for operation. You know, once there is a light, if a light reflects on it now, it makes you visible. People can see you and all of that. Then this is the hard hat. You wear it to protect yourself, because in some cases you might have to go into building. You wear it like this, so it covers, this cover protects your head, and this protects your eyes from the ray of the fire and smoke. So this what this stands for.
And what about the material? Is it fire retardant?
Yes, it's fire retardant. You can see it's very thick, and it has a second layer in it. And this is just to ensure that even when the fire, you come close to naked fire, it doesn't hurt you. You know, you are moving in when people are rushing out of a burning place. You know, you are going in, so you need to protect yourself. And this is also the hand glove, which you just wear to just protect you, like I said, you know, protective apparatus for firefighters.
So beyond the outfits which the firefighters are expected to wear, what equipment are they also expected to have when fighting fires?
Okay, thank you for that question. This is just one of the equipment that firefighter use or deployed when they are going for their operations. Like if you look at it, if the director can take this, we have the fire extinguisher. Of course, we also have the oxygen cylinder there in case when you are entering into a building and there's no air. This will help you to stay alive while you do your job. Then this is just for you personally. We have other equipment such as, for instance, you've seen fire trucks, which is also part of what the government just provided for the Federal Fire Service.
Yes, I was coming to that actually. Sometimes you've been out in the field, you go out, in fact, you're just coming back from the field, and with some of the reports that we've heard, a lot of Nigerians don't seem to believe in it. Why is this, from what you've seen as a correspondent?
Okay, from my own personal finding and from my interactions with some experts in the insurance sector, we see that there is a decline in the patronage of insurance companies, especially for business owners. Of course, it's better and improving in the corporate world. When you see all of these big companies, they understand better the importance of insurance. So, but for small businesses, small and medium business owners, you see that a lot of them still find it difficult to actually patronize insurance brokers, and that is why experts actually want the enforcement of the Insurance Act 2003 to use relevant section of that act to ensure that people not only get aware and get informed about the importance of insurance, but to actually enforce if possible, so that when a disaster strikes, there will be palliative measure, because the whole essence of insurance is to be able to cushion the effect of whatever loss or losses that people have as a result of fire outbreaks.
So thank you very much, Doyin. You know, I have so many questions, but unfortunately we're going to have to stop here. We might invite you again so that we can do a follow-up. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Naja. But before I go, it is important for me to quickly also highlight that President Muhammadu Buhari graciously last year released over 20 billion to the Federal Fire Service, and this was used in purchasing over 90 modern firefighting trucks, with the approval for the recruitment of about 2,200 cadet officers who just passed out.
Thank you very much, Doyin. I look forward to inviting you again so that we can talk more about safety and what role citizens should play when it comes to preventing fire outbreaks. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing your experience with us on Fire Service Operations, Doyin. We hope to see you next time. Up ahead, disappearance of mass transit buses in Abuja. That's after the break. Join us again.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. Or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
Welcome back to The Correspondence. Let's take you to Jigawa State, where perception of public schools is changing for good. There are strong indications that concerted efforts of both federal and state governments to change the perception of Nigerians about the gap between public and private schools is achieving results, with more people enrolling their children in public schools. This may not be unconnected to improvement in teaching and learning environment in such schools. Let's hear from our correspondent Ibrahim Sani with the situation report.
Nafisa runs and kicks. Amina runs fast. Amina gets it. Adam cannot get it. Hen runs back. Nafisa is flat. Nafisa pick up box. Hen get a box from Nafisa hand.
These are some of the primary 2 pupils in one of the public primary schools in Jigawa State. Their improved performance may not be related with the joint effort between stakeholders in the education sector, who work collectively to ensure that pupils at the basic level receive sound literacy to achieve academic excellence.
Community Development Association is now trying to partner with government in organizing a lot of training and workshop so that to build the capacity of the teachers. And I think a part of that, the issue of the new initiative by the federal government, the NFOWER program, voluntary teachers, that's teachers being sponsored by the community to teach in some of the public schools.
Following these efforts, children in public schools in Jigawa State now confidently express themselves, giving credence to the foundation laid in most public schools, thereby discrediting the perception that children in public schools in the state can neither read nor write.
The snail is big and fast.
Shallow foundations always lead to poor performance in the education system. To avoid this, competent teachers were employed and the existing ones were mandated to obtain the minimum teaching qualification.
People are taught or are encouraged to go and learn the skills of the philosophy and practice of education, as well as teaching method and the psychology of education also, in order to teach effectively. And this thing is taking root very well here in this particular state, and is very encouraging.
The milestone achieved also has bearing with the provision of required infrastructure, facilities, and relevant instructional materials, which aided the effective teaching and learning in public schools in the state.
The project I am supporting the education sector in Jigawa State, that is GPE, Global Partnership for Education Project, and Nigerian Partnership for Education, always emphasizes on children access and then training of teachers and the provision of some teaching and learning materials. So with this little support, you can see children will be in schools, and as teachers are trained, basically there should be a change in the scenario of learning among these peoples.
Indeed, recruitment of teachers were based on proven ability and requisite entry qualifications into the teaching profession.
The Jigawa State government is in collaboration with Teachers Development Fund, a UK-based development international partners, which they supported the state in terms of the training and retraining of teachers to enable them face the challenge of teaching profession in the global sanctuary. The provision of qualitative education depends solely on the teachers that you have at hand to offer the knowledge and teach the pupils along with global best practices.
Other factors were not related to prompt payment of teacher salaries, regular inspection and supervision, which all give rise to improved performance among pupils in public schools in Jigawa State.
A child of primary 2 can be able to read sentences. He can be able to pick some words and read them correctly. It is a sign that yes, we are working towards improvement of education in the primary school.
Government places high premium on building new schools and renovation of old ones to accommodate pupils and to ensure that pupils-teacher ratio is maintained.
We can share them between 4 classes instead of 2 classes. We can put them 70-70 or 50-50. So this will help us to teach them well, to understand, to deliver our lessons successfully.
Parents on their part played their role by encouraging their children to do their homework and ensure that they go to school on time.
That era of a father to beat his boy or child before he go to school, that one has ended. The era of students to be running away from schools unnecessarily, that one is also matter of the first in Jigawa State. So you can see it's 3 make the achievements: the government, the parent, and the students themselves.
The supporting partners such as Global Partnership for Education, Universal Basic Education, among other interventions, supported towards achieving the feat.
We are expecting the teachers to do more on their job, coming in time, teaching the students in the class, putting more effort on their duty.
Although there are little challenges, however, the success recorded will in no distant future overshadow the challenges.
There is hope that with constant and prompt supervision of teachers, the success recorded in public schools in Jigawa State will be sustained.
Hopes are high that with constant monitoring and prompt supervision of teachers and provision of child-friendly and conducive learning environment, the successes recorded in public schools in Jigawa State will be sustained for increased enrollment. Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Now to transportation. From all indications, Abuja, the nation's capital, is growing faster than the transport infrastructure can take. The city's mass transit bus scheme seems to be overwhelmed and disappearing or reducing in number. Correspondent Oyinaya Kalu-Oka took a ride in the bus and brought back this report.
El-Rufai buses popularized during the tenure of Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasiru El-Rufai, as the FCT minister. Very easy to spot and used to be cherished by many. Passengers queue for long hours in the bus stations due to non-availability of buses. It is some minutes to 10 o'clock in the morning, and behind me you can see long queue of passengers waiting to board. They have been standing here for more than an hour, waiting for the bus to arrive.
So person will come and join line for more than an hour before you see motor.
I don't really understand why they cannot organize this very well. Go to Bega now, there are many buses in the Bega.
More of all, we are going to work, we are going to office, and up to this time we are still waiting for.
It is orderly queuing up at the Nyanya bus station, but inside the bus it is a different scenario with everyone scamming for space. A potpourri of drama, no dull moment, despite the fatigue standing and the long hour of ride as a result of hold up along the route to Wuse. This is a 44-seater bus, but you can see a lot of standing. The bus is taking about 80 people right now, more than the capacity is supposed to take.
In fact, to stand in this bus, you're even lucky to find space to stand. Because as you can see along the road, a lot of people still trying to find buses, still trying to find ways of getting to town and to their offices.
It's a known fact that no human being, by the way this bus, is constructed, is just to carry all passengers on street. Nobody is supposed to stand like this. By standing like this, not only to the human being inside the vehicle, but for the vehicle itself, it's causing an inconvenience into the vehicle. The government is doing enough, but we are still appealing to the government to do more.
Private car operators appear to be taking advantage of the situation.
So we find it difficult to go to where we are working. So we need help. If the federal government will do us that help, they should supply buses.
Records from the Federal Capital Territory Administration show that there are about 261 buses operating daily in the 6 area councils, as no new bus has been added to the fleet in the last 5 years. A visit to the headquarters of the Abuja Urban Mass Transportation Company Limited, an arm of the FCT in charge of the buses, revealed a large number of these buses parked for years.
The administration is working on a fleet renewal plan. You'll see in our premises we have quite a number of buses here waiting for repairs. And you can even see some buses that we have just refurbished and repairs and ready to go on the road immediately.
Poor maintenance culture, poor funding management, and population growth were attributed as some of the factors contributing to the disappearance of these buses.
Normally, the fleet has to be changed. In fact, the regulation treatment has to be changed every 4 to 5 years. And you need to buy another fleet because they work on daily basis. We need to change all the buses. But all those buses that work for like 15 years, 20 years, 15 years, and they're already tired of working. So the cost of maintenance is higher. It's going to be higher when you have your vehicle spending, what you normally use before is 10,000, 5,000. As they grow older, they'll ask for more. So it's not productive anymore.
One major question on the lips of commuters is, what is the way forward?
We are engaging with the licensed operators. We've spoken to them. In fact, the minister has even told us that we should reduce the requirements for licensing. If formerly we were saying that, you need to have 50 buses. Now, if you have 10, because we know that if it's left to government alone, we don't have the funds.
The focus can be, put on developing this transit way for the FCT in phases. The phase 1 to 3 can be concessioned out. And you can have proper bus schedule service on the transit way because it's only buses and the rail. If we are not even doing the rail for those transit way now, you can do it for the buses. And it can be achieved within a short time if it is concession to private sector. So I'm sure it's economically viable for the private sector to do this. There are other transport infrastructure that are required for the city. There are needs for terminals. There are needs for more bus stops and for laybys.
As the bus comes to a halt after a long drive, to most civil servants and residents in the FCT, this service must not come to a halt, as they appealed for urgent intervention.
Indeed, Oyinaya, the need for the Federal Capital Territory Administration to revive the operations of the mass transit buses has become more urgent given the growing population of the city. Thanks a lot. And that concludes this week's edition of The Correspondence. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you again, same time, same station, next week on another edition. Remember to follow our Twitter handle at FUOLUANTA and use hashtag NTA Correspondence whenever you make a comment or ask a question. From all of us here, it's bye.
Thanks for joining us. This is the summary of the news trending on the hour. I'm Ruth Aguela. Let's begin with an update on coronavirus. The federal government is not relenting on its efforts towards containing the spread of coronavirus and other communicable diseases in the country. Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Anire, said this at a ministerial joint press briefing to give update on the coronavirus issue in the country. He said the patient on quarantine in Lagos is responding to treatment while commending the physicians and all the caregivers for their preparedness that resulted in the prompt detection of the infection.
The patient is stable, is responding to treatment, his viral load is reducing, and we are happy that he does not appear to have had a particularly bad type of the coronavirus infection.
Of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed said all the ministries, departments and agencies under his ministry have been given adequate information and education on the disease to educate the public on the efforts of the federal government and also educate the people on preventive measures.
Remain on top of the situation, reporting on a regular basis, on a daily basis, on all our major news bulletins. Since the outbreak of the disease in Nigeria and Lagos last week.
The briefing was attended by Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika, World Health Organization representative and other stakeholders. In a related development, but on the foreign scene, Thailand has reported one new coronavirus case, bringing the total number of such cases in the country to 43 since January. The new case is a 22-year-old Thai woman who works with another Thai patient and a Thai driver for foreign tourists. So far, 31 coronavirus patients have recovered and returned home, and 11 are still being treated in hospitals. Similarly, Delhi has confirmed first case of coronavirus. In a statement, the country's health ministry said one case was detected in Delhi. The person from Delhi has a travel history from Italy. And back home on judiciary, the Supreme Court has adjourned to Tuesday, 3rd of March, the hearing of the suit filed by former Governor of Imo State, Emeka Ihedioha of PDP, seeking a review of its earlier judgment that sacked him. Counsel to Emeka Ihedioha, Kanu Agabi, SAN, told the court that he was served with a process this morning in court and needed time to respond to it. He made an oral application to court for Tuesday, which the court presided over by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, granted. Meanwhile, the case of APC candidates in the last governorship election in Zamfara has also been postponed to 10th of March following non-representation and series of processes to the parties. The court has directed that the parties be served. The Supreme Court had nullified the election in which APC lost all its seats declared by INEC on the grounds that the party failed to conduct legitimate primary election as stipulated by the Constitution and party guidelines. And that's all we have for you for now. Thanks for your time. I'm Ruth